my phone in airplane mode.
Yeah. Let me know when we're ready.
Okay, let's begin. I'm gonna give it a few seconds when I record. All right, welcome. I am your host, Konrad Rogoz. Welcome to my channel, Truth and Law. Welcome to the first episode of When the Smoke Clears. And as the smoke clears in Chicago, coming out of the smoke, we got a very special guest for you. We've got a talk show host, comedian, filmmaker, singer-songwriter, mystic, freedom fighter, and all-around great guy. Since 2008, he's covered well over 6,000, created well over 6,000 published videos and radio broadcasts consisting of 20,000 hours of long-form interviews with over 2,000 of the world's leading thinkers, researchers, inventors, warriors, scientists, and professionals from hundreds of different disciplines. He hosts the Vinny Eastwood show every Sunday at 4 p.m. on Republic Broadcasting Network. And he is also part of the One Great Work Network. And he is bad news. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. News himself, Vinny Eastwood.
What's up, bro? Thank you for having me.
All right, man. Thank you for joining, man. So, how you feeling?
Well, my standard response is I'm borderline and on fabulous, but other than that, like crap,
Well, you're a day ahead of me, and New Zealand is much more than a day ahead in the descent to tyranny, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. She's pretty tyrannical in this little archipelago, It's kind of like a nationwide gulag. And just recently, our Prime Minister announced his little tour. A little man doing a little tour. He's kind of looks like a little schoolboy, short shorts and a little hat. And he cruised up to Vietnam, a communist country, and then he met Klaus Schwab, a globalist, on his way to China, a communist country, to meet with the premier. It was like the head honcho commie. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of New Zealand in a nutshell. Communist, globalist, nothing else has a chance to get on the tour.
I have maybe heard a few whispers about New Zealand and China relations tightening, so,
Oh, yeah, getting tight right in there like a Chinese finger trap.
Who wouldn't want to get snug with those authoritarians? Why not, right?
Aye. Well, New Zealand's sort of like a former British banking colony and centre of worldwide organised crime in terms of money laundering. I believe in the Panama Paper leaks, New Zealand was mentioned like 66,000 times. And basically what that means is because we've got a river of dirty money running through this country, we're kind of like the Cayman Islands of the South Pacific. And speaking with gang historians and things of that nature, people who are actually members of the gang, who are there, officially the historian, telling me that the New Zealand police actually helped set up their particular gang. And there was an article that I saw this morning that the police were pursuing a gang member who jumped in a river to get away from them and then drowned, And people are like, oh, so sad, too bad. And I'm like, well, you know what would have made this headline better is if the police actually got into the river to try and get him and they drowned too. And then we can change the headline to gang members pursuing gang member, both drown in pursuit. All right, so that's the thing that we're dealing with here in New Zealand. It's just gangland crazy out there. They've banned all the guns, banned them 14 days after we got a big old attack. Who the attack was done by or anything, we won't know for like 30 years. Why? Because the investigation into that Christchurch mosque massacre, all the findings of the Royal Commission have been sealed for 30 years. All right? And the guy who allegedly did it is in solitary confinement, is not allowed to talk to anyone, and is not allowed to accept any media interviews either. So yeah, there's nothing suspicious going on. I think the fact that we had 2 drills on the day of the shooting. One of them a police armed defenders squad where they had a mock drill about somebody shooting up the place, and a NATO sniper drill as well. So we had foreign snipers on New Zealand soil who were even on the day given shoot-to-kill orders, just in case. And so, yeah, man, this country's just weird, and it's scary, and I don't like it anymore. You know, and I'm kind of coming to the realization that maybe I never even liked it. You know, I haven't traveled the world terribly much, and so my manifestation of how bad the rest of the world is by comparison to New Zealand might be somewhat skewed. However, because of the fact that I've interviewed about 2,000 people from all over the world about various different subjects and things, I think I've got a reasonable handle on it, and that New Zealand is probably the most corrupt country in the world. And those aren't my words. Those are the words of a former Scotland Yard corruption investigator who had worked in 40 countries before he came here. He said that New Zealand is the most corrupt country in the world. All right, now, that may sound strange because Transparency International releases a corruption perception index every year, and New Zealand's usually perceived as being the number 1 least corrupt country in the world. Now, the key there is perception. So how they do it is this. You have to be a member of Transparency International in order to fill out the form that they give you. And so the members of Transparency International in New Zealand, as you'd expect, are some of the most corrupt plutocratic scum that you could conceive of. And so these are the people who get sent the voluntary questionnaire from Transparency International. So it works like this. So, bro, have you guys got any corruption there down in New Zealand? And we're like, nah, bro, nah, it's all G. And we send the form back blank. Number 1 least corrupt country in the world. Perceived.
The gangsters investigated themselves and found everything to be in order. So what can you do?
That even happened during the 2008 financial crisis when we elected John Key, who was formerly the European bond and derivative representative for the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Now, the 2008 financial crisis was caused by derivatives. And then when we had this crisis, we elected the guy to help us who caused it. You know? And there was so much stuff during his reign. I think he was like nearly Prime Minister for virtually 14 years or something like that. I forget how long, but it was a long time, 3 terms-ish. And what did he say? There was the chief ombudsman during the height of the financial crisis was asked about derivatives, specifically referencing KPMG, a company involved with this trade. And I think it was it might have been the ombudsman or some top official saying that, look, it's such a complicated area that we can't understand it. So we asked KPMG to investigate themselves for us. And they assure us it's all good, bro. Like, you can't make this stuff up.
And how can you believe it? Only with the false belief in authority and in general. The whole thing's messed up. We're the silly ones for believing in this stuff. They're not the silly ones for doing it. If they can get away with it and we find that investigation to be valid, that's on us. But I wanted to kind of take you away from the dark present and the even darker future, maybe take you to the past a little bit. I wanted to ask you this question. I just started to notice the world wasn't what it seemed like around 2008, and that's when you started your show. Now, how was it different starting a show in 2008, and how is it to start a show now? Is it the same thing?
No, it's not. Right, like
so tell us about that.
Well, on the day of the Christchurch Mosque Massacre, I believe this was March 15th, 2019, I had the day after Ole Damagard, who is an international celebrity in terms of predicting false flag attacks, had him on the day after the attack. And we got censored in the middle of a live stream. Now, that had never happened before in the 14 years or 12 years or however long I'd been doing it up at that point. Never been censored in the middle of a live stream before. And Ole had been doing this for 40 years, and he'd never been censored in the middle of a live stream before. So the day after the attacks, they had the ability to censor live streams in the middle of them, right? And I lost my YouTube channels and things like that because of the misinformation. They say that if you've put out any medical misinformation or something like that, they're going to take your channels. They're going to pull down your videos and things of that nature. So by comparison, back in the day, I was able to do and talk about anything. Anything. I interviewed a so-called Holocaust denier. Didn't get the video pulled. But you know what was funny is the reason why my channel was pulled, and all three of my channels actually, 65,000 subscribers in total, got pulled on the same day. And the reason why they did that is because in 2012 I interviewed a guy named Zan the Wise Old Man who was saying some stuff about Israel. And that got me banned. Right? So something that's perfectly okay in 2012, now fast forward to 2021, and now that's not okay to say anymore. And now all of your 6,000 videos, all of your audience, everything you've ever created, frickin' gone. Can't get it back. Never. Okay, so to start now with the shadow banning, which didn't exist in 2008, I've got 11,000 followers on my Facebook page, my official Vinny Eastwood Facebook page. I post something, I'll be lucky if I get one like. One. Okay? And that is due to the shadow banning. So, with the censorship in real time, censorship of everything you used to do, and now shadow banning, so even if they wanted to censor you, they wouldn't have to because nobody saw any of your censorable material. It's a lot worse starting a show nowadays, and certainly a very bad idea to continue doing a show if you've been doing a show this whole time. You know, like the audience just isn't there. I'll be lucky if I get a dozen or maybe 24 people watching any given show, and to compare that with what I was doing when I was live streaming on YouTube back in the day, I was getting maybe 2,000 hits within an hour or two of the show ending, and now I'm lucky to get over a couple of hundred by the end of the week. So yeah, man, and they banned my Patreon as well. They didn't tell me that they banned my Patreon. They just banned me, let alone telling me why. I had to find that out on my own. And with the demonetization came before the deplatforming, mind you. They ramped it up, didn't they? First they did the shadow banning, then they did the demonetization, then they did the deplatforming. And so now, anybody who wants to make money by telling the truth and doing the right thing, very, very difficult. I was making $4,500 extra than I am making today per month, US. It's just through my Patreon and the super chats that I was getting through YouTube. So to have to live on $4,500 less a month, every month, is extremely difficult. So I don't envy anybody who's coming into this game now, because back in the day you could make a career out of it. You know, you could have some kind of respect. You know, people could actually see your stuff and what have you. But now it's Yeah, it's preaching to the converted to a large degree. Just only the people who really know about you and are absolutely tuned into you and stuff like that. It might be only a couple of dozen of them in the world for me right now.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you this. That's not exactly the answer I was expecting, but uh, well, because I was thinking, oh, what must have been so difficult getting the technology? It was more expensive. You had to get on somebody else's platform, whereas now you got your own website. You get all this stuff. It comes cheap. It's so easy to get the technical knowledge now, and it's so much easier now to begin, right? And I was just thinking about that, but that's enlightening right there, enlightening information. I'm kind of in the heat of this right now. I've kind of got the beginner's optimism, and it's we don't even think about the censorship, but to you who's been doing it this whole time, that's that sounds dark, and I see it too, because I have a video called "The Case for Armed Rebellion," right? I got videos like that, and I know shadow banning is extensive, but it's man, I guess you just really don't notice. But here's another thing they do. If you've been making a living, right, you're good at what you do, you deserve to make a living. Now the censorship is tied in with economic. It's economic censorship, economic tyranny. You know all about that. What they tried to do to you. You know.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just me. I mean, the big test case for this was, of course, Alex Jones.
Right.
Deplatformed simultaneously off YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Right, just in the same day. Right, so you knew that big tech were working together now, and I said at that point, this is the beginning of the end, because unless the American people, as one, rise up and do something about the deplatforming of Alex Jones, they're going to take that as we can do this to everybody who opposes us now. All right.
Yeah.
And did the American people rise up and support Alex, regardless of whether or not they agreed with what he did, or what he says? No, they didn't. And so then they deplatformed everybody,
Even his starchest, strongest supporters, no way. And why you mentioned Christchurch? Because we had something happen that had it was a event with a lot of things going into it, right? It was a complicated thing, but what was it about? It was about children. Now, who is going to step up for man's free speech where you're going to be called somebody who doesn't care about children? That's emotional mind control. We could see it as it was happening, and no one really did anything.
Yeah. And the manipulation of people's emotion is actually the reason why people make decisions. All right? And the truth movement is not terribly well abreast with this information. They're still thinking that it's the facts and the evidence and stuff like that convinces people. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Facts don't matter for jack to the human mind. Emotions make your decisions. All of the important decisions in your life, you'll make those out of emotion. So if you think 9/11's an inside job and somebody tells you that there's a free fall collapse and 10 second and so on and so forth, it's not the information that gets to you, it's the fact that your government does, and will murder thousands of its own citizens in order to justify the things that it wants to do. Okay? That emotional chunk of ice right there is what's going to wake you up to 9/11 being an inside job, not free fall speed.
Yeah, and what's going to prevent you, one of the things that are going to prevent you from accepting that is now, okay, if I accept that as being true, I'm immediately a social outcast. And then it's that fear reaction, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's real, man. It was like I was telling you on the phone the other day. Two guys come up to you, and one of them says, "Vinny, I want you to sell lies." And I'm like, "Lies? Well, what do I get if I sell lies?" And he goes, "Mate, you're going to be rich. All right? You're going to have a real hot wife, a real nice car, real awesome place to live, and all those celebrities and famous people and powerful people that you see on TV and what have you, they'll be your friends, mate. Okay, you'll be going around to their parties and houses and stuff like that and doing blow with them. And you'll be able to shag lots of girls on the side too if you want to, and nobody will say nothing about it." Really? That's what I get if I sell lies? Yeah, mate. What about you, bro? What do you reckon I should sell? I reckon you should sell truth, Vinny. Oh, yeah? What if I get to sell truth? Well, you're probably going to lose your job. And probably all of your friends as well. And you'll be sort of a outcast of society. So you'll be broke, you might be homeless, and you won't really be able to work. And even if you did, bugger all people would hire you. That's what I get if I decide to sell truth? Yeah. You need to work on your sales pitch, mate. Yeah, I know, it's just... But anyway, what are the unintended consequences of selling lies then, mate? Well, all that money you've got, that can be taken away at any moment you say the wrong thing. All those friends you got, if you're down for the count and you need help, they won't be there for you. That wife you think you got, she'll just take off with half your stuff. Won't care. Really? Yeah, mate. Well, what about the unintended consequences of telling the truth? Well, you'll have a couple of good friends, and they'll be there for you whenever you need them, really. And you'll have trust in your life and real love. But you won't necessarily get rich or terribly successful. What you will get, however, is everything you need to survive and live when you need it, in the exact amount you need it, at the exact time you need it. Okay? So that's really the choice. You can live a fake, fancy life with all the trimmings of the three-dimensional realm, or you can deal with the suffering, pain, and outcast status of telling the truth and have only real decent people in your circle and everything you need when you need it. That's basically it. And a lot of people, they look at the TV, they look at the movies, and they see all this fame, they see all this fortune, and they think that that's what they want to do. That's what I thought I wanted to do. But then when you look at the truth and you realize how important it is and the consequences of not following it, it doesn't become a choice anymore. It sort of becomes an obligation.
But it seems to be an easy choice if you have the discernment and being the ability to delay gratification, to see the big picture. If you can put yourself 10, 15 years ahead, it seems like an easy choice to me. I've already in my young life taken the path of going down the path of lies, and it didn't take long to figure out that's not what I wanted. It seems to be a pretty easy choice, that the long, hard road is the road we need to take, right?
Yeah. I mean, who looks up to people who take the easy road? Hey, mate, I got offered $1 million just to sell out and do what I was told for the rest of my life. Oh, bro, that's awesome. Great job. You know, no, people don't people don't look up to people who sell out like that, do they? They mostly look up to those people who speak truth to power and don't back down. These are the things that are actually really important about mankind, I think. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, all you have is you. You're the only one in control of you. You're the only one who can make yourself do anything. And so, therefore, the important thing in the world is not the 8 billion people or the 100, 200 countries or anything like that. None of that actually matters, all right? It may sound like a bit of an extreme statement, but your actions, that is actually what matters, all right? Why is that? Well, because the collective doesn't exist, okay? You can think of it as an abstraction, okay? So you see a tree and you know that that's a tree, but if you see a whole bunch of trees together, if there's enough of them, you call it a forest. Now, Go back to the tree. Can you touch that tree? Yes, you can. Then go to the forest. Can you touch that forest? No, you can't, because it's an abstraction. Like government. Government doesn't really exist. It's just a group of individuals that you can't touch in it. Because people have this idea that the collective is something. My opinion is that the collective is nothing, and that it is only comprised of the individuals within it, which makes the world a lot easier to make out, because a lot of people are talking about political parties and all of these groupthink ideas and what have you. But when you realize that the political party is subservient to the concept of individuality, you realize that that party is only made up of individuals. Each and every one of them, if you're talking about the Democrats, seem to be, crazy. Like, just out of their minds. Like, oh my goodness, these people are saying that? These people are doing this? This is unbelievable. And you think it's unbelievable because you don't realize that the world's run by crazy people. Okay? Crazy people got together. They're inbred, they're rich, they're psychopathic, and they've got connections up to wazoo. What would they do to a planet if they existed on it with those resources? They'd try to make it more like themselves, wouldn't they? They'd make it jealous, vicious, nasty, ignorant, arrogant, brutal, and satanic, and selfish. All right? Now, the difference between individuality and Satanism. Satanism is described as a love affair with the self. All right? I love you, me. You ever heard these New Age people freaking talking about that? These people are freaking de facto Satanists. And the difference is, I'm an individual and I have all these powers and things of that nature, but that doesn't make me special. What I do with these powers that are given me makes me special. Somebody could come up to me and say, "You're not special, Vinny." I was like, "Really? Have a look at all this music." "Wow, that's really amazing music, Vinny." "Have a look at all these radio shows." "Wow, those are great radio shows, Vinny." "Have a look at all these short films." "Wow, those are great little short films, bro." You know, that kind of thing. I am amazing. Not because I say I am, but because I actually am. Because I've actually done something to prove it. And if anybody wants to, challenge me on that, I have reams and reams of stuff to show them. That's way better than anything that they could ever manifest. All right? So, if you are an individual like me, and you're particularly talented, it is your own fault if you don't do things. And it is to your own credit if you do. And people go like, "Oh, you're tooting your own horn," and so on and so forth. And I'm just like, well, okay, that's fine. I understand that you've got tall poppy syndrome. This is what we call here in New Zealand. Anybody who sticks their head up and be like, "Hey, everybody, look at the stuff that I can do." And we're like, "Oh, that guy's a dick. Oh, he's so arrogant. Oh, my goodness, I'll never listen to his show." That kind of thing. These lowbrow collectivists, because they think that the only good or important thing that can ever be done in the human experience is done with another group of people. And it's not, necessarily. The greatest things that have ever been accomplished in mankind's history have been through groups of individuals working on the same problem. Usually, people who didn't even know each other. All right? Like, for example, who invented the telescope? Nobody knows. Because one night, 9 different frickin' people around the world who had never met sat bolt upright in bed and built a telescope. Okay? Now, this is the interesting thing about being an individual. You've got this thing that David Icke calls a fractal antenna. It's called DNA. All right, you see how I've got long hair? The DNA goes all the way back to the end of it. And what they did in World War II is they had to recruit a number of Native American people as scouts for the military. These people could read signs and things like that. They could tell what an animal was thinking because of its footprint. And so they took them in for basic training, and they shaved all their hair off, and then they put them in the field. And they couldn't see a damn thing. They were like, I can't read anything. I got no ideas. And so the military was like, that's really interesting. Let's get a few more of these guys in, and let's not cut their hair and do some tests. And so they had these two groups of guys, one with their head shaved and one with not, and they had this test that they had to get through. They had a number of tests, but one that I committed to memory is go to sleep by a fire. Now, if you win the game, you survive. Okay, now this is what you have to survive. Somebody, while you're asleep, is going to creep up on you and get a fake knife around your throat. Okay? If they manage to do that, you lose. If you somehow wake up beforehand and get away, you win. If you wake up beforehand and pretend to be asleep, get the knife off of the person and get it around their throat, you win double. Okay? And every single time the ones with the shaved heads were asleep by the fire, they wound up with a knife around their throat. Every single time. They lost. Whereas the ones with the long hair, the exact opposite was true. Every single one of them passed the test. Now, how is that? That you can pick up information from the universe through your antenna, that's your hair, and this can be decoded and become of actual practical significance. Think about the musicians in the 70s and 80s and things like that. Did you see a shaved head among them? You know, generally speaking, no. They all had long hippie boy hair and stuff like that, even up until the 70s and 80s after the 60s were over. And this is the reason why, because you're able to actually pick up manifest signals. Okay? And it's kind of important to a large degree, because this means that there is a morphic field, right? Here's reality, and above it is the morphic field, okay? It comprises everything that's in reality, but it's got a whole bunch of other extra stuff that people who only live in reality can't frickin' explain. Like, how can a blind guy drive around a obstacle course and not crash into anything? All right? It's something that Anthony Peake told me. And I was like, whoa, that's cool, man. How can somebody move faster than they're physically able to? I remember Anthony told me about this guy who left his home in London to go to work, and it's like a 90-minute drive. He had to be there by 9 a.m. He got out the door at 8:30 a.m. And he doesn't remember how it happened. All he remembers is that he was walking through the office doors at 9 a.m. on time. An entire hour of time disappeared, and he magically went from one point to the other. Okay? So this world is very complex and very interesting, fascinating. So fascinating, in fact, that people will stop living their life and start just looking into the stuff that happens. Now, I don't think that that's a very good idea. The whole idea of listening to the Vinny Eastwood show is that you should not be continuing to listen to the show after a certain period of time. After a certain period of time, you should have been given what you need from it, okay? You hear a person after a person after a person. Every show is basically the same show. I mean, bar a few exceptions when I'm just doing it by myself and having a bit of a rant. I like those ones the most, actually. No, I'm kidding. But the thing about it was, every show you're asking the person, so who are you and what do you do? Okay, how did you get into this, and so on and so forth. Now, we all have our own individual experiences, and we all have our own different lives and different skill sets and things of that nature. So the more people that you listen to who gave up being their own set of normal and became their own set of extraordinary, the more likely it is that you as a listener will hear somebody who has a remarkably similar story to yourself. And the whole idea is that one person during a show may listen to what's being said, and it'll resonate with them, and they will change what they're doing with their life, and they will do something different, something better, which makes everybody's life a little bit better. If you change yourself and improve yourself, you improve everybody's lives. It's sort of like the opposite of Marx Passio saying, where how do you know if you're suffering? If anybody's suffering. If anybody's suffering, you're suffering. Just like if you're improving yourself, you're improving everybody.
And if you're improving yourself, you're sending out a frequency that all those people with long hair are picking up.
Well, one can only hope. But but still, it's the ping that happens, you know. Ping! I need to invent a telescope. I guarantee you, on that night when 9 people invented a telescope, there were probably many, many, many more people who got that same idea on that same night. Have you ever had an idea and you didn't do anything with it? And then a week or a month or a year later or something like that, you see that exact same idea that somebody else has put into action? You know, you see an advertisement for it or something. We all do, okay? Because the information is there for those whom are willing to put in the effort. That's probably the main point of life, I think, if you really want to boil it down to, is that the universe rewards those who put in the effort.
And there's somebody out there kicking themselves, like thinking, man, I want to have Vinny Eastwood as my first guest on my new show, you know? Like, oh, damn, he beat me to it. But I just wanted to tie a couple of things in with that. When you were talking about the hair, I thought of how the military, they shaved theirs into a square, actually, just that shape of a square. And that's all a collective. That is the epitome of collective over individuality. And obviously, there is only individuality because they want us to think there's no individuality and that we're not individuals, because then if we're not individuals, then there's no property. And that's what they want, because they want all of our property. They want it all for them, these people. It's a great scam, the collective, you know?
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
I mean, they're like the Borg, you know? You will be assimilated into the collective. And this is a thing that I love so much about sci-fi, is that sci-fi has the golden ticket. Sci-fi can tell you anything that the elite are doing and put it in a science fiction context, and you'll believe that it's fantasy, when in actual fact, it's one of their plans, or it's one of their devices, or it's something that they've already done, you know? And so this is how you kind of get people into predictive programming, all right? If you've seen it before, and if you see it manifest in reality, you'll be more likely to accept it. But if you've never seen it before, never even heard of it, and people hadn't seen, I don't know, how was it? Since 2008, I was starting to pay attention, and every single year there was some type of outbreak or pandemic or whatever that they wanted to vaccinate everybody for. Every year.
On The Simpsons.
You know? And it wasn't until 2019 and 2020, when we started getting locked down and everything like that, that I suddenly realized what they were doing. The main principle of advertising is that you have to see something, I think, like 7 times at least before it sinks into your mind. So what if they're telling us over and over and over and over and over and over again the things that they want us to think, the things that they want us to believe, and then when it happens, we just sit back and accept it? That is the game here, and they're very, very good at it. Not because they're particularly talented, but because they've got enough money to pay the best in the world at brainwashing to figure out what makes you tick, how to mess with your head, and how to get you to do what they want without you even realizing that somebody was telling you to do something.
Right. And they got the willpower and the drive to do it through repetition. And if I could switch gears a little bit, what I was thinking of another thing they do through repetition, and they do it so often that we think it's normal, and it's called kidnapping. And you were actually kidnapped in 2021, right? Kidnapped for doing nothing, standing on the street, just giving people truthful, empowering information, not obstructing any official activities. If we're even saying that there's such an official, real thing as official activities, you were not doing any of that. You're not coughing in anybody's face. You weren't trying to block the roads. and then they came and they kidnapped you. Bunch of guys in orange stupid vests, and no, who spoke up? It's just like with Alex, right?
Technically, they were yellow vests, because yellow
They
is
were.
the color of cowardice, which every single police officer. Every single police officer is a coward, and be like, oh no, I know some good cops. Really? Okay. Here's a photo of a black man being beaten to death by police, and there's a whole bunch of police standing around just watching it happen. Point out the good cop. Okay. Here's a video footage of a naked girl being pulled out of a protest in New Zealand by her dreadlocks, and a bunch of cops then putting their knees on her back. And all the rest of them just letting it happen. Point out the good cops. All right, and human will is very misunderstood. Okay? If you have the will to do something, it means you're able to, more or less, to a large degree. And this is, of course, going all fireside chat or whatever on you. This is real. Your will is manifest, and it does make you do things because you can force yourself. That's the thing. There's two types of people in this world: those who want to force themselves to do something, and those who want to force others to do it for them. All right. And so when you're applying your will, especially when it comes to police, they don't really have any. Okay? It's indoctrination. They've gone from a young, dumb, life experienceless vessel, more or less. Just came out of government propaganda brainwashing in high school. And then they go into being police. And they go in with all these other young hotties, and they're shagging each other blind, and they're getting almost no training. I remember I was talking to Constable Buck Rains, and he said they got 30 minutes training on how to use a taser, 30 minutes training on how to use a baton, 30 minutes training on how to use a firearm. All right? These people don't know nothing, and they get 0 minutes training in psychology, 0 minutes training in criminology, and I think he told me that when they were taught about cannabis and how bad it was, the person that they had to speak to them about it wrote a book 40 years ago about it, okay? And he spent, this is 1 hour, and he spent maybe 52 minutes of that 1 hour talking about the one time he went to Antarctica. This is how educated our police are. This is how well trained they are. You know what they do spend a majority of their time doing? Marching in unison and repeating mindless little things like law, statutes, and things of that nature. This is classic cult indoctrination. You get everybody isolated. That's number one. If you ain't isolated, you ain't in a cult. Number two, you get everybody with a central authority figure. Number three, you need to be traumatized. And guaranteed, if you're going to be reading legislation and repeating it over and over again and marching over and over again, you're going to be traumatized because you're doing the other thing, which is mindless, pointless, repetitive tasks. These things work in concert alongside with sleep deprivation and nutritional deprivation to stop the mind from working, okay? Because your mind has defenses in it. It goes, hey, something's going on here. These people are dicks. I don't want to be here anymore. But if you're real tired and you've been doing all this stuff and there's a central authority figure and you're getting paid and so on and so forth, your mind can make up the story that I'm doing the right thing. I'm on the right side of history by being a cult indoctrinated sociopath launched upon the public like a predator perching on a tree, just waiting to pounce on the people that are doing something that they can get revenue from, And the people, their minds work in much the same way, Cop pulls you over and you go, what are you stopping me for? And he goes, revenue gathering. He didn't say that, of course, But whatever he does say, that's the only thing that you hear. Because we've told ourselves a little story as well. The difference between us and the police is the story we're telling ourselves is the truth. Okay? And the movies have, and the TV shows have just done a number on the public consciousness. Okay? Like, for example, you've seen the show Cops. And in New Zealand, we've got a show called Emergency Heroes. All right?
Huh.
Like, they pull over an unwarranted, unregistered car who's got a beneficiary driving it, who's got shopping in the back to go off and feed his kids, and he gives them a $700 fine. You know, emergency heroes. These guys are protecting society. You know, it's just a complete freaking lie. And you see all these guys as big action heroes jumping across rooftops and blowing away bad guys and busting stuff and what have you. Whereas the statistics don't actually support that. Police, in the course of doing their job, create crimes. Okay? Here's a crime. If you got assaulted by a police officer, that's a crime. Now, in New Zealand, and I'm pretty sure this model really persists in the entire Western world, if you complain about that, the people that you can complain to are called the Independent Police Conduct Authority, the IPCA. And guess who's the staff are? They're the New Zealand Police. So you're going, hey, the New Zealand Police assaulted me, New Zealand Police. What are you going to do about it? Well, we assaulted you. What can we do? Like, I mean, we can't take back the punch to the face, can we? You know, get out of here, boy. And then I saw an article, 1,000 police officers. All right, now out of goodness knows how many, it could have been 100,000 or 200,000 police officers breaking the law and violating people's rights. But in this particular year, I believe this was 2016, 2015, if I remember correctly, there were 1,000 police officers who were prosecuted by the New Zealand government. 998 of them got let off with no punishment whatsoever. And the 2 that did get punished didn't even lose their jobs. Okay, that's a 1,000% chance of, if you're a cop, you can do whatever you damn well please and get away with it. 100% of the time. That's what it is like in New Zealand. They're freaking untouchable, as DK Spiracy, my wonderful mod and wonderful live streamer himself, just said in the chat. Untouchable. And people don't realise how weak the police situation is. And I've spoken to former police, my favourites, of course, Constable Buck Rains. And he said that there's actually 5 million people in New Zealand and only about 10,000 police. Okay? Like, they are so vastly outnumbered that if the public decided to, there would be no police tomorrow. All right? And that's why they're so scared. That's why they're so vicious. It's because if you stand up against tyranny and the first thing that happens to you in front of everybody is you get punched in the face so hard that you get permanent brain damage, who else is going to want to stand up? Few, if any, are going to really have the balls to do it. So that's what's happened. We've brutally been subjugated and psychologically castrated by the day-to-day activity of the New Zealand police. And that's just here. And I'm pretty sure what I've just said goes for every other country as well, apart from maybe Sweden. Was it Sweden, I think it was, where the police said, we serve the people, not unelected elites, during the lockdowns when they refused to enforce them. It's the only time I've ever seen any positive PR from a police department. And then, of course, if I started investigating the Swedish police, they'd be doing the same kind of crimes, same kind of cult indoctrination, and everything as everybody else. But you know what they do, don't you? They put out a little bit of positive PR to give yourself some doubt. Man, I'm not sure if all of these people are sociopaths and really bad people as I think that they are. Maybe there's actually some good people in there. There isn't! Okay? Those so-called good people who do the occasional nice thing for you. Okay, let's say, for example, one day in a police officer's life, he ruins 3 people's lives, all right? And he helps one person change a tire, all right? Now, is he a good person just because he changed that tire, or is he a bad person because you take the entire context into view? Right? They hurt people, they destroy people's lives on a daily basis for a living. That is a bad person. Okay, that's like the definition of it.
You know, that guy whose tire he changed, he's probably a drunk driver. He's going to kill 10 people on the way. So knowing them, anything they got the opposite of the Midas touch. Anything they touch turns to coal, you know. But, you know, here
it's called it's called, as the Scottish would call it, the shitus touch.
The shitus. Well, you know, here in the United States, at least, they look like tyrants. They wear your black, they wear the blue. They got the gun on their hip. You could see them. So when you get arrested or kidnapped by them, like they did to you, you at least know, oh, this is a scumbag coming to exert his will on me. But I saw that day democracy died, and I see these guys in their bright yellow vests coming up, and I'm like, these guys? And it's so dystopian. They don't seem to do any super aggressive movements. They're not like a fighter like this. They're just like a wall of drones coming to take your rights, and then they put you in the van. And then you mentioned someone that got solitary confinement. You got the 2023 version of solitary confinement. If you take a professional radio host and take the internet from him, take his ability to connect with the person who went through the trauma with him, is that not like solitary confinement in the modern age? And that's recognized internationally as a torture method.
Yep, and it was, what was it? Dr. Rima Lebo and Ralph Fusatola contacted Amnesty International about this. And Amnesty International is so corrupt that they won't touch it.
Yeah, I saw that episode. Dr. Rima's incredible, but of course they won't touch it. All these organizations, they're more collectives. We need individuals to step up, right? And
that's the thing. You need groups of individuals rather than a collective of individuals. And it's a different thing. Like, I believe Stefan Versteppen told me that the 4-man team, military operations throughout the developed world have been occurring since humanity basically began. There's been war of some kind or conflict. And the 4-man team, after all those centuries and thousands of years of war, have been defined as the best unit, okay, for doing damage, getting away, transporting. That's 4 guys. You can sit them in one vehicle. You can get into an area, cause a whole bunch of havoc, and then get them out. 4-man teams, guys. So when you're doing thousands of protests and things like that, what if, instead of going, let's get 10,000 people to walk down the street, or 4,000 people to walk down the street, I'd say, no, let's get 1,000 groups of 4 people to sit on every single corner in the city that's major. That would be the most effective protest ever seen, because you're not just walking down a singular street. You've got the entire city covered with the same amount of people, right? See, this is how it works. And it's the small groups of individuals with skills that come together that work things that can really, really change things. And every time somebody goes to the government or goes to the police or any kind of organization with power to help solve their problems, they wind up becoming the victim of Satanists and communists, more or less, much like this entire world at this point is, because people have been raised on collectivism so long that they don't know how much power they have as an individual. And the collectivists know that that is the most important part of their plan, is to make sure that people don't know how powerful they are. You know? Somebody was talking once, I think it was James Corbett, about 500 years ago, this French philosopher wrote a book because he was plagued by a question. Why do people submit to tyranny? Like if you look at the dictators throughout history, they're generally shorter than most people. They're often
Soft.
sickly and soft and weak and overly emotional and very immature. These are the kind of people which, if you were a big, strong man, you could just take them the hell out, no problem, right? But for some reason, all throughout the entirety of human history, people have bowed down to them. This French philosopher wondered why. And he found out it's not fear, it's indifference. Okay? If you don't care, those people can do whatever they want to you if you don't care. All right? This is what Mark Passio talks about, true care and whatnot, and how important it is to show it. But if people don't care, and if people don't want to take action, it makes the tyrant's job easy. And that's why tyrants have placed so big an emphasis on making people afraid, and then such a big emphasis on keeping people entertained. Imagine for a moment that I said to you, hey, look, there's a tyrant over there. You can get yourself really badly hurt, and you can have your entire life screwed up and maybe even get killed, but you can take out that tyrant. Or, here is 10,000 forms of entertainment that you can spend your time on instead. You see? How many types of people are there? How many types of entertainment is there to satiate their will? You know, to derail it and distract it and what have you. I think this is why the entertainment industry is probably one of the most important that it's ever been, really, because this is the thing that prevents people from taking any action against the forces that assail them.
And you know what? Even for those people that they're going to be the ones to go take down that tyrant. They even have a channel for them. Watch Vinny Eastwood take down that tyrant. Watch Alex Jones do it. Watch Mark Passio do it. And a lot of people choose that form of entertainment, and they don't do it themselves. And even those who think they're past it, they're still watching the entertainment. And this, your show, these shows we do, they're not supposed to be entertainment shows. And I think many people are watching them like that. This is not a game, right? But I wanted to actually take the concept. You're totally right about indifference. People just don't care. This is one of the reasons I didn't want to do anything like this, because I thought it was basically like lame to care so much about something. Not literally, but it's just like people will laugh at you. Why do you care about that so much? Just care about money. Just live your life, But where does indifference come from, right? And to me, it's just no self-respect. And we teach our kids that they have no value. You take the value out of them, you take the self-respect out of them. So then it's easy to go to indifference because, like you said, we don't have the power. People don't know that they're actually worth more than this. You can't get pushed around. Look at you, you're better than this.
Now, Debbie Lacey is one of my most loyal listeners. She's always there in the Twitch and the YouTube feed. She says, these shows are for learning. Now, yes, to a point. Once you've learned, then you have to take action, okay? Because as I say, knowledge that does not get used is the definition of useless knowledge, all right? Now, I could put pressure on everybody and say you can't listen to the show and not do something yourself, blah, 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 blah. And that's just not how it works. I mean, I used to listen to Alex Jones on repeat. He does a 3-hour show and I was listening to it on repeat. you know. And in that 6-month period in 2007, while I was working as a salesman for a telecommunications company, I think I was consuming, on average, 2 documentaries a day and listening to between 3 and 6 hours of Alex Jones every day of the week. All right? That will change your perspective on the entire world very, very quick smart. And so when I was looking at Alex Jones saying he had the live streams going, he had the radio station going, he had the website up, he had this, he had the whole apparatus. All right, so I was like, is there anybody in New Zealand who's doing that? Any part of that? Nobody? Really? Like, I was a 24-year-old boy who didn't know jack about the world, and I got angry enough to do something about it. Okay? And for, what was it, 2008 through 2019, I think it was just after Jacinda Ardern got elected. Did she get elected in 2018 or something like that? I forget which.
I do not know.
When did Jacinda Ardern get elected?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan, so I'm not sure when she was born. I'm not sure when she was elected. I stay clear of that. But
here we go. October 2017. There we go. So, from the period of 2008 to 2017, when Jacinda Ardern became Prime Minister, there were 0, and I mean 0, other people in the entirety of the 5 million in New Zealand who were doing what I was doing, which was basically what Alex Jones was doing. 0. She pissed people off so much that you virtually can't even turn a corner in this country now without seeing some new person who's only been broadcasting a year talking about we're going to take this government over, we're going to mount an election campaign, we're going to do this, that, and the other. That's what happens when you piss people off. They react.
Yep.
Okay? But John Key didn't piss people off as much as Jacinda for some reason, right? And this is ironic as well, because John Key's the right wing. He's the National Party, the equivalent to the Republicans here in New Zealand. And you know what happens when the Republicans are in charge and the left aren't? What happens? Huge protests, huge this, that, and the other, all the freaking time. You know, we don't like Trump. Because they're collectivists. Okay, they can't actually like individually go up and do something about it or start their own thing or whatever. They need a whole group of people, otherwise it's just me. And that's the thing that I noticed when I was protesting beside all these leftists in the reign of John Key. And then Jacinda comes in, does almost the exact same thing in every way that matters as Jacinda, taking away people's rights, passing successive crappy legislation, so on and so forth. All things John Key was guilty of. Did you see any protests of equal size or frequency as you did when the right wing was in charge? No, you didn't. And a word on protesting, it doesn't work.
I'm glad you said it.
I've been to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of protests, maybe 1,000. And not a single effing one of them got any concessions from the government or anything that they were after, right? Not a single one of them. So if you are protesting, I never went with protesting to the point where I believed in what people were protesting against, per se. Right? Yes, I would have agreements with them, and yes, I don't like this, and yes, I'd like to say something about it. But that wasn't why I was there. The reason I was there is because I'm really good with a megaphone, and I make that shit fun. All right, bro? Like honestly, You have not been protesting until you've been protesting with Vinny Eastwood. I am the man. It's so awesome. It's so fun. So funny. Have you ever noticed how an amplification device makes you funnier? I didn't until I had a megaphone. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome. But actually, that's not the main reason. The main reason is you find all those people who have the megaphones, all those people who get on the microphone, all those speakers and things of that nature who have been invited to speak. Why? Because when you watch the news of the protest that night, you see between 4 and 12 seconds of coverage of that protest. There was a protest going down Queen Street and they were protesting the government's new mandate laws or whatever. That's it. Okay? But when you're listening for an hour while you're walking to the things that people are running out through the megaphones, and when you're listening and recording for an hour after that protest has finished marching and you have all the speakers, you have a geometrically increased amount of information that is available to you. Now, I was the only one who got off my ass in this entire country to go to those protests, record them all, then go home and edit them and include all the speakers, everything that they said, so that there would at least be some kind of record of what is being said, the knowledge that they're giving out. All of that's gone now. Now, there might have been a bunch of people out there who saw one of the videos back in the day or something, and it might have inspired them or it might have taught them something that they don't know. All that benefit of that knowledge is now no longer available to anyone. Okay? So whoever has that knowledge, whoever benefited from it, from all that work that I had done, it's all on you now, guys, unfortunately.
And that's why people need to archive information so they have it in case one person gets taken down. That's like what you were saying about the 10,000 people on one street. Well, we need to be the people, we need to get a couple people on this street. So if they send their guys over here, we can re-upload these videos. And now it's not so easy to launch a mass censorship campaign. It's easy to censor one person. It's not that easy to censor entire countries, right? So that's why we need more podcast hosts. That's why we need more people doing this. And I wanted to ask you about that. I wanted to ask you, what makes a good podcast host? How can we be, maybe not like Vinny, but what do people need to do? Because we want these people that are so pissed off right now that they're going to do something. Well, what kind of qualities need to shine through them?
Are they having fun? And are they being themselves? That was the two things that I got told by Danny Romero at American Freedom Radio. When you're doing your show, be yourself, have fun. All right? Because if you're being yourself, this is actually my rule, not Danny's. His rule was have fun. And I just went on from that because basically, if you're being yourself, you're relaxed. And that relaxes the audience. And if you're having fun, they'll have fun too. All right? That's basically it. Now, there's all sorts of talk radio show hosts, and they have all sorts of different kind of purposes, right? If you want to bang your head against a brick wall, trying to wake up people who will not wake up no matter how hard you try, this gig is for you guys. Like, honestly.
You're in for a treat, guys.
All right. You don't do it because the job itself is fun. Okay. The job itself is horrible. Okay. You're dealing with the worst schisms of reality-changing concepts that have ever been conceived of by man on a daily basis for a very meager living. Okay? Not a great sales pitch. Do it because you want to have fun with it. Or at least that's how I do it. Now, the idea behind archiving other people's things and what have you, I did a video called Jacinda Ardern Exposed in 7 minutes or less. And that was part of a series, a documentary series that I made about every single political party in New Zealand, and including all previous prime ministers, showing that they all of them, every prime minister we've ever had, and every current party that we have are globalists. All right? Without exception. Right? And the only reason why that's still on YouTube is because somebody stole it and re-uploaded it. Thank you, whoever that was. You stole good. All right? Now, in addition to that, my other one was Pete Santilli's, unauthorized biography. This guy messed my life up big time. I was doing 5 shows a week. I was running guerrilla media, and then he took guerrilla media from me, and I was so depressed by him and his flying monkey attacks and things of that nature that I really kind of have been running lower ever since. Wow. But it was like maybe 3-4 years it took of him harassing me for me to react. All right, that's how long it took for him to piss me off, to the point where I was like, that's it. All right, son, you got problems now. So we made a documentary that was only 14 minutes long, and we got through this guy's entire past. All the horrible things he said to people, all the horrible things he's done, all the stupid things that he's said, and all the victims that he's got. We had like over 50 of his victims that were guests on the Vinny Eastwood show over that 3 years. And the amount of information that they gave us behind the scenes and things of that nature all went into the documentary, to the point where you can't look at this guy or hear his name anymore if you've seen that documentary and think anything other than what I want you to think. Because I want you to think the truth. This guy's a sociopath. This guy's a liar. This guy is scum. Okay? Stay the hell away from him. And I think maybe only a month or 2 later, after the release of that documentary, people were coming at him left, right, and centre, to the point where he had to do live broadcasts with a big crazy manic look on his face, denying the things that were in that documentary, which were undeniable. And then he got arrested and put in jail. And he wasn't allowed to testify because he was an FBI informant, which we exposed in the documentary.
Can't make it up.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what, Vinny? That's how it would work in a society without centralized authority to punish people and put them in jail. The person who's wrong will put their will forward to put the truth out there, and the people will see it, and they'll say, okay, that person is wrong, he's immoral, we do not mess with him. We, maybe they don't kill him, but he's not with us. And that's how things get done. That's how individuals settle their disputes between each other, right? If somebody really wrongs them and does something to them, there's a way to do that without, some guy or some collective needing to trash out for us, right? We could do it ourselves. But
yeah, I
wasn't aware of that situation. That sounds awful,
Oh, that was definitely the worst experience of the truth movement in my life, and that's it's good fodder though for other people who are in the truth movement to know that not everybody out there in the truth movement is a good person. Okay, right. I would say the majority of them aren't. All right. The truth movement is exactly like the rest of society. You've got real idiots and real intelligent people. Real scum and salt of the earth. Okay? We're all in this movement together. So if you're young or naive about it, you will eventually get screwed over by one of these bad people in the truth movement. And unlike me or many others, you'll quit. Okay? That's the thing about this movement. I've seen a lot of people come and a lot of people go. And the attrition rate for being a talk radio show host is basically one of the highest in the world in terms of professions. Right? The Navy SEALs, people who get selected for the Navy SEAL training program, I think 25% of them don't wind up becoming a Navy SEAL because the training's just too hard. They literally physically can't actually do it. Now, in talk radio, 90% of the people who start a talk radio show will collapse at the end of the first month. Okay? 90% of those people who survive the first month won't make it to 6 months. 90% of those who made it to 6 months won't make it a year. And then so on and so forth. The longer you're going, the more people aren't there anymore. And I think, do I even know anybody in New Zealand who started around the time that I did that is still around? Or started in the United States around the time that I did when it was still around? Mark Passio, Max Egan, James Corbett. I think those are the only three names I can think of off the top of my head that started doing what I'm doing around about the same time and is still here today. All right? And if you want to go and listen to the show that I did with them, that's freaking awesome. You can watch it on my website. Just search for Mark Passio, James Corbett, and Max Egan, and you'll come up with those things. So a lot of these guys, like myself included, I'd like to say, is really just full of knowledge of the pitfalls of the truth movement and how not to fall into them. Usually because we have fallen into them, right? And that's I think probably one of the most important things to really understand about the truth movement, I think, is it's just like the rest of society. You're not special and you're not suddenly a good person because you know 9/11 was an inside job.
Right. You look at the real high quality people, you ask yourself how many Vinny Eastwood, Mark Passio, James Corbett, and Max Egans are there. Those are really unique, small group of individuals. But I will say this, Vinny, this weekend, episode 30, right after this, episode 30 of This Week in Tyranny is coming out, 30 consecutive weeks. You know, we're going strong. But I have heard this from people telling me, going week to week is very difficult. Don't get burned out. It's hard to keep up this pace. For anybody that is seeing this and just started or wants to start, what are some ways you could prepare for that? Taking care of your health. What do you think?
Well, I hadn't been taking care of my health. And so now I'm on the point where my naturopath is telling me, Vinny, I don't want you to die. That kind of thing. Like that's what this movement has taken a toll on me, because I wasn't taking care of my health. I was always about the work and doing the shows and editing this, that, and the other, and helping out this activist and the other. But I wasn't taking care of myself, and so now I'm broke, facing 3 months jail, and have almost no audience. And I'm sick as a dog, right? And that's what this movement will do to you. That's what it will do. It's nobody really gets out of it unscathed, I think. And I'm one of the most well-adjusted people that have gone through this because I've got humor. Humor's very important, and so why is it that this thing really kills people off so badly? And it's the emotional stress, okay? Let's say I'm talking to somebody who's been, I don't know, ritualistically, satanically abused by high-level pedophiles, including their own father, and who used a curved blade to cut the hole in between her anus and her vagina and rape the wound. Okay, let's say you've interviewed people like that. That's pretty freaking traumatic. And then you got to do a show the next day. All right. So, yeah, man, your brain doesn't have any firewalls. Okay. What that means is this. I can put ideas into your head and your head won't be able to stop them from getting in there. Okay. Large breasts jiggling. Okay. You can see them, can't you? And the same is true with all the things that you learn about in the truth movement. You learn about aliens or reptilians or satanic pedophile cults or whatever it is, most of this stuff is not the kind of thing you'd want to do in real life, okay? At least when you watch a horror movie, you know that it's not real, and you know that when the movie's over, you don't have to be traumatized by it anymore. But it's very, very different when you're talking to people who have had stuff happen to them that you know is real, that you know is still going on, after the show is over. You have to live with that. You will get depressed doing this job. If you don't, you're not human. You will have rage attacks, that'll scare your loved ones. You will get short with your friends. You'll lose most of your friends, okay? Because the pain that you have to suffer through doing this is not a pain that the vast majority of people are capable of comprehending, let alone even helping you with, okay? It'll usually be somebody else who's been through what you've been through, who's found their own way out of it, that will be able to help you out of it as well. South Americans call this the wounded healer, where sometimes you will suffer a wound so great that you will not be able to see a life after it until you've met somebody, the wounded healer, who suffered similar wounds to you and made their own way back. So finding those wounded healers is very, very difficult, and it's even more difficult when you realize that the vast majority of the people in your life, family, friends, and things like that, people you thought you could rely on, are not interested in this information. And if they are interested, they don't understand what it's like to do this job. The only people who really know what it's like to do my job is me, but close thereafter, there's a number of other people who I considered peers in the truth movement and things of that nature. And when we get on shows, it's great because we totally get it. We each totally get it. And it's not something that really goes away. You obtain that understanding, and it is there forever. Okay? And people don't like permanence, okay? This is the thing. We would love to be able to lie to ourselves and say that, hey, there's a political solution to this. We would love to be able to lie to ourselves and say, there's a peaceful resolution that can be brought here. You think people who ritualistically rape and torture children on a daily basis are gonna stop doing what they're doing because you ask them nicely? My gosh, we're up against the worst in the world, literally, and you have to take that on emotionally and intellectually at the same time. And it doesn't matter who you are, that stuff is really dangerous. It's volatile. I remember one time when I had a lady in my house, she was talking about her parents-in-law, and they wrote the child abuse legislation in New Zealand to protect the abusers. They had a soundproof house on Muriwai Beach that they called the Candy House. Okay? Really scary kind of stuff. She was here in my house for 6.5 hours, smoking cigarettes after cigarette after cigarette, or that kind of thing. So stressed out by the things that she's seen and had done to her, and all of that stuff, having no relief from that. Like, I have to actually sit here and take this for 6.5 hours. I couldn't talk to anybody really for about 3 months after that. Okay. I remember screaming at my my ex-wife, Sarah, just, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. Oh my God, because you can't, if you're an empath like me, you can't listen to people who've been through such terrible pain and take none of it, okay? And I was talking to my counsellor the other day, and he says, yeah, that's like it is. Your work comes home with you. And so he has routines, There's a costume that he puts on when he goes to work, and then when he comes home, he takes that costume off. And then he's got his own counsellor, all right, that he has to go to see and talk to him about all these things. So basically that's what the truth movement more or less is a protracted process of grief counseling. Okay? That's basically what being a podcaster in the truth movement is. You're for lack of a better word, a grief counselor. You're not a talk radio show host. You're not a podcaster. You're a grief counselor. And that means that you are going to take on people's pain. You're going to take on people's grief. And in many ways, you won't know how to get rid of it. Okay? That's the dangerous part. That's why people burn out. Because I think when I started, what was important to me is to not have to work if I didn't want to. Okay? Because some days you don't want to get out of bed. And you don't want to have a job where you have to if you don't want to. All right? And so I figured this. If you're on a government benefit, that's the best way to do this job. Because if you say, oh man, I can't be bothered going to work today, you're on the benefit, you're fine. All right. So what I did is I created my own government benefit, which is, hey, donate $5 a week to the Vinny Eastwood show. Keep doing the shows, keep doing the work and stuff like that. And now I've got enough money coming in, which is actually equivalent to a government benefit. Okay. And so it means if I don't want to work, I don't have to. If I need to take 6 months off to recover from the emotional trauma that I had, 6 months, that's happened once. I can. That's how people get involved and stay involved, because they have methodologies for clearing themselves out and supporting themselves while they're doing that.
Right, because who counsels the counselors?
Yeah.
And well, I wanted to ask you then, there was something else going through my head, but let's talk about this. Somebody hearing that, right? It's definitely very. Oh, this. I'll mention this before I go on. It's just hard to reconcile that, right? You've had all this grief, you've had all this stuff on your heart, you feel it, and then on the other hand, you walk outside, you talk to your friends and family, and they're worried about the football game, or they're worried about this and that. And when you know that people like Jay Parker and Kathy O'Brien are out there, and you know their work, and it's just like, how do you even put that together? That's traumatizing in itself. Those are two contradictory extreme polarities that are hard to, it's hard not to break, right, and split into in that moment, on a lower scale, of course, but you know what I mean. It's hard to put that together.
Yeah. I mean, it's
But
something you kind of have to be groomed for. I mean, the elite know all this stuff, and they've been groomed into it, right? Whereas if you're a normal kid, playing Power Rangers or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or whatever the kids are playing now, and then you're suddenly thrown into this, it just kind of comes out of left field. But my little boy Alfie, he's not going to have any of that difficult upbringing or difficulty accepting the truth or whatever, because that'll be all he knows. He'll only know from day one what the truth is. He might get afraid or whatever, but Daddy will just tell him, have you made a lame joke about it, boy? And this is like, boy, like, oh yeah. Okay, good boy. All right. See, this is how you get those coping mechanisms in. And I always wondered what it would be like if you grew up only knowing the truth. Right? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine how much more of a well-developed individual you would be?
conscious parenting.
And how much less traumatizing learning about all of this stuff for the first time when you're adult would be.
Maybe it would even be empowering to learn it because you're ready for it.
Perhaps. Then again, kids are supposed to have a certain degree of innocence, right? Now, there's many parts of the truth movement per se that are not traumatic whatsoever. Okay, they're actually quite like, wow, that's cool. Like the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton with epigenetics. Had somebody who can meditate for an hour and be able to change gene expression by 1%. Like their genes express themselves all the time, all the live day long, and then somebody meditated for an hour and they changed their gene expression. Whoa, That's pretty cool. And these kind of things are like really wonderful. I'd love to have grown up knowing that. Or Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and how you manifest things in your life is basically directly reacted to how much you want to and how willing you are for it to allow it to happen. You know, these kind of things are very important but non-traumatizing. Whereas I think that basically, if you want to learn, though, trauma is the number one method of teaching people. You know, nothing will teach you a harsh lesson like a lesson that costs you a lot.
Seemed to have worked just fine for me.
That's my thoughts on that anyway.
Okay. How about your thoughts on confidence? I've been thinking about this, and this has been the big theme recently in my life as I'm thinking about not only how to tell people what I want to tell them, how to help them, how to help them make themselves step into the role of being their true selves. And I thought it was confidence. It's the same thing as having fun, being relaxed. And for me, it was confidence. This is something I was lacking, right? I think the main thing that's going to make a good podcast host is confidence, or that's going to make a good construction worker. That's going to make a good, even a healer. You got to be confident in yourself. I wanted to ask you about that. Maybe how your personal confidence, or how can people develop that within themselves? What do you think about it?
Well, that's a very big question. There's a lot to unpack there. Do I have much confidence? I do in certain areas, but not in others. Like, for example, if somebody tells me, hey, Vinny, here's a microphone and here's a beat, make up a new song that's going to be a hit, I'll be like, no problem. Hey, Vinny, here's a microphone. Can you talk for 2 or 3 hours without any notes or any guests? I'm like, no problem. All right. But if somebody says, hey, Vinny, you have to hike for 6 hours into the hills to go, hunt a wild deer or something like that, and then bring that carcass back, I'm like, I've got problems with that. So we're not all cut from the same cloth, and we're not all the same people. Find out what you're good at, and go do that.
Yep.
Like, I'm the best talk radio show host in the world, and as far as I'm concerned. And the reason why I think that is not because I'm arrogant or stupid. It's because the people who've been interviewed most on shows like mine in the world have come on my show and invariably come away from the show saying things like, that was the best show I've ever done. To my mind, if you can interview somebody who's been interviewed thousands of times and have them tell you something like that, you're the best talk radio show host in the world. You've got nothing to worry about. You can have anybody on your show, anybody, anytime, anywhere, and do the best show in the world. Okay? The fact that nobody listens to my show is a source of great frustration, but at the end of the day, what I know for a fact is that my audience is the best audience in the world. Okay? You will notice this. The comment sections are full of brilliant people who say really nice and encouraging things, and sometimes very challenging things, because they're up at the tippy top of where humanity should be in terms of their awareness and their capacity to understand things which are complex. That's why I think it's so important to give praise to your audience on occasion, because without them, you wouldn't have a show. All right? Without me, there obviously wouldn't be a show, but if there was nobody listening to it, it would just be me talking to myself, which I do quite often. Right? That's another thing that people don't sort of realize about me, is that I'm a little bit weird. That might have escaped your attention. But sometimes when you're thinking through things, or especially when you're angry with somebody or about something, or whatever, you'll sit there and you talk to yourself, and we've all done that. Hopefully, hopefully I'm not the only one. But
Maybe we all have our own methods, but yeah, we all do that.
yeah. And this is the thing. It's like, it's okay to be weird. It's okay to be strange. It's okay to do things your own way. How do I know? Because nobody got hurt and nobody's private property got damaged in the process of doing my thing. Okay? That's how I know that it's the right thing. Other than that, go for your life, guys. Be the best at whatever you're the best at. And if anybody says that you're terrible at this, maybe you should do that or whatever, just go, why? I'm the best at this. Why waste my time becoming reasonably okay at something else?
Awesome.
Wasting my time.
I'm going to take away from that. Okay, no problem. I could do this. And it's okay if I'm weird. And that's a great answer. You even threw in the definition of objective morality in there. Man, I'm getting the bang for my buck here for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great answers.
And also a great segue there of talking about hunting a deer and stuff like that. That's bang for your buck.
Oh yeah.
Now
you don't get that from any guest.
No, you don't. But on this whole idea of confidence, the question is about overconfidence. Really? When somebody thinks that they're really good, but they actually really suck? Don't become one of those people, man. Oh, no. Oh, my God. And they're everywhere. In this society, there are so many people who are so terrible at what they do, but they think they're great. And what's really good is to be around people who don't think, but are actually better than you at something. Okay? Like, I love my mate Barack. He's great at playing the drums. I can't play the drums. He's great at electrical engineering. I can't engineer electrical, I love my mate Ian because he can build pretty much anything, and he can play the bass. I can't play the bass. I can't build. And I love my mate Mike because he can play multiple instruments, and he can take a photograph that will make your blood run warm. Just a beautiful eye to it. All these guys have talents and skills and things of that nature that I don't have. That's part of the reason why I love them, because they're my good friends, And my dad always said, if you're going to have friends who can do something. All right? And all the friends and stuff like that I have in the truth movement, they're people who manifestly are capable of creating things out of nothing. Like, literally, if you've got a computer that works, you can create stuff out of absolutely nothing, for free, more or less, But you just have to have that investment in the technology in the first place. I remember back in the day I had a 21-inch iMac, and now I got a 27-inch. I got 3 of them. I had 4 or 5 of them. And this is the thing. If you are working and you're trying to start this up from scratch, it's going to be tough, bro. No lies. Because the universe doesn't want people who are lazy to succeed. Okay? The universe takes one look at you. Are you lazy, bro? Yeah, I'm pretty lazy. Then, fuck you. All right, now, that's just how the universe works. It doesn't care. All right? If you're willing to put in the effort, it'll be like, oh, this guy's serious. But he's really stuck right now because he's worked so hard on this one computer that he's burnt it out. He needs another computer. Let's just manifest this guy over here that's going to give him a computer. The first time he was listening to his show, gave him a $3,000 iMac. Because I needed it. Exactly at that time. Right? And the right person came along. The manifestation. Okay? All through putting in the effort. Like, I don't know anybody else in New Zealand who's put 20,000 hours of content up there. And namely because the only people who've been publishing content have only been started publishing them since like 2017 at the earliest. And some of the people who are like doing really well now, like Liz Gunn and Counterspin, they've only been around for a year, maybe two. Okay? They're only just starting. They've got a baby collection of content and things of that nature. And they'll learn, just as I did, that the harder you work, it doesn't really get you anywhere. All right? That's strange to say. That it's not about working harder. It's about, as they say, working smarter. But I'm not sure it's that either. I work instinctually. I'll get a message from somebody and go, "Hey, Vinny, have you ever heard of this person?" I was like, "No, I haven't heard of that person." I'm going to send them an interview request and find out. "Oh, why don't you watch their videos or read their website first?" And I was like, "What's the point when I can talk to the person?" It's a waste of my frickin' time. If I'm getting onto a one-on-one, like, for example, what would you rather do? Watch a Steven Spielberg film for 2 hours or interview Steven Spielberg for 2 hours? That's the thing. And the truth movement is great because we all want to talk and we all do it for free. Okay? So if you're in the truth movement and you want to interview somebody, it's as simple as sending them an email. 99% of the time, they'll say yes, without much effort. It takes me between 60 seconds and 90 seconds to get a guest approved on the Vinny Eastwood show. Write the email. "Hey, I want to get you on the show. Please contact me if you're interested." It's maybe like 10, 15, 12 seconds, whatever. And then they email me back. They say yes. And then I email them back telling them the exact time and the Skype details and stuff like that. And then put it in my calendar. And we're done. 90 seconds later, we've got David Icke on the show. Or we've got Mark Passio on the show. Or we've got James Cord on the show. Or Max Egan. Or any number of thousands of individuals who have huge followings and things of that nature that you can get on the show, even as a nobody, just like that. Just by making that little bit of an effort. And sometimes it's intimidating. And I'm still intimidated by a few people that I haven't been able to get on the show yet. One of them is Alex Jones, and the other is Jesse Ventura. Some people are really, really hard to get, and you actually have to put a huge amount of effort into getting people like that. But yeah, man, it's hard work all the time, doing what you do, regardless, because of the emotional load that you have to take on. And so burning yourself out, working way too hard and things of that nature, you're going to be stressed when you do your shows. And when you're stressed, you're not going to relax, and your guest isn't going to relax either because of that, because they'll feel it. Okay? You want to be relaxed and you want to be happy, or at least as relaxed and as happy as you can be, considering whatever subject matter that you're talking about. Okay? So don't stress out. "Oh, my website's not ready. Oh, that video was crap," or whatever. Just relax. And your shoulders come down a little bit. And I'm going, "No, relax." And then your arms go totally limp. And I go, "No, relax." And then your legs start getting a little bit dumb. And I'm thinking, no. Relax. And then you're just like, oh. You see? Manifest relaxation while you're in stressful situations. That's, I think, key to longevity in this movement, because things are not going to go your way a lot of the time, and things are going to be difficult. But if you can center yourself on a regular basis, then you can survive it. It's like Robert Anton Wilson once talked about the cosmic schmuck principle. He says the cosmic schmuck principle holds that if you wake up at least once a month and think to yourself, "Man, have I been a bit of a cosmic schmuck?" Then if you do that, you will prevent yourself from being schmucky, especially at this primitive form of human terrestrial evolution. Okay? The cosmic schmuck principle. So this undermines confidence to a large degree, doesn't it? Because you can be confident that you're an idiot. Okay?
Hmm.
I have admitted it many, many times. Yes, I've been lazy. Yes, I've been an idiot. Yes, yes, yes. All these negative things. And I've accepted them and forgiven myself for them. Okay? Why is that important, to forgive yourself for your shortcomings? Well, namely because your shortcomings aren't going anywhere. Okay? And they're going to continue to hound you and piss you off at yourself. And what that's going to prevent you from doing is the work you're here to do. All right? You can either be pissed off at yourself because of what you're not doing, or you can just focus on what you're doing. All right? And you can't do both.
It when you're stressed and mad at yourself and angry, it takes you out of the present moment. If you like, you're thinking about your website and all this, you're thinking about the sound isn't coming across the right way. Well, you're supposed to be doing a show right now. Where are you? We get taken out of the present moment all the time. That's where we need to be. We're sorely missing in that time.
I was totally in the K-hole of a present moment when I was interviewing David Icke and Mark Passio. Like, Passio told me ages ago, he says, Vinny, have you got David Icke's contact details? I really want to get him on the show. And I sent it to him, but David Icke's very difficult to get on a show sometimes. He's one of those big people who's in a lot of demand. You know?
Yeah, of course.
So you just have to be persistent with it, and eventually you get him. But Mark didn't have that kind of time, you know. So I had Ike to be interviewed, I think maybe a week or two after my arrest. And so obviously I didn't show up for the interview because I was banned from the internet for 6 weeks.
Right.
And then I rescheduled it. And then I was like, wait, hold on a second. Mark Passio wants to interview him. And he hasn't yet. And I've got him coming on my show. Why don't I just get Mark and David on together? And it was like magic. It was such a great show. You know, like epic. And I think it was the show went on for about 2 hours. And it was about an hour and 45 minutes into the show where I was just zoning into it, you know, kind of thing, that I suddenly realized, oh my God, I've got Mark Passio and David Icke on the show together. Nobody's ever done that. Holy, you know, that was crazy, man. I started fanboying for a second there because I forgot to be stressed. I forgot to be worried because I was just focused on having a conversation with these guys, you know, and that's where the best shows happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a powerful message and a really relaxing one.
Yeah. I mean, whenever I get stressed, and I get stressed out on a daily basis. There's lots of stuff going on. Just ask myself, you know, where are you? I'm right here. What time is it? It's right now. Is there a threat coming to kill me in the next 60 seconds? Nope. Take a deep breath. Open your eyes. And you're back in reality. The vast majority of the things that you're worried about aren't here yet and may never manifest. And so the longer you worry about things that don't exist, the more of a waste of time your freaking whole life is going to be, isn't it?
But the way we can make threats manifest, if people want to do that, is by doing nothing. Because that's what we're doing. It seems like there's a whole lot of indifference, and we're just chilling, and nothing coming to kill us. So people are just chilling. They're sitting on their couch, and they're not really trying to build. You know, there's so many cool things to do in the world. So much if we just use our voice. You know, I'm all about using my voice right now, but you don't have to use your voice. Like you said, not everybody's good at one thing. You could use your hands. You could use your feet. You could use your head. You know, start hitting the wall, see if you could bust it down. Maybe somebody will. But man, I know I was one of those people doing nothing. Worst thing to do is nothing. If you do something, you do it wrong, you could still fix it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I said on the show a while ago. Is that the only thing you have to do? The only thing you have to do is not nothing. Okay, it's very simple when you think about it like that. You know, even writing one word a day in a truth blog or something like that is still 1,000,000,000 times better than doing nothing.
And if you write the same word, you're going to get pretty damn good at handwriting.
Well, one can only hope. You know? It's practice and repetition. So, like, I was also schooled by the best. Like, I had my first real kind of like with radio was Vapi Kupenga. She was the #1 rated talk radio show in New Zealand. Okay, and she was on Radio Wātea, urban Māori radio. Okay, very, very small station. But she got more listeners than Willie and JT. This is John Tamahiri and Willie Jackson, who are now both members of Parliament, by the way. She had more listeners than they did. They had the midday show, you know, on Radio Live. You'd think it was a huge show. But she had more listeners than they did on urban Māori radio at 9 o'clock at night on a Thursday. Right? She was brilliant. And how did this old Māori lady do that? She said, Vinny, it's because I take all these issues, the climate change, the 9/11 being an inside job, the alternative health things and what have you, and I related it to Māori. Okay, so Māori would be able to understand it. And I took that lesson and I was like, hey, wait, hold on a second. The biggest talk radio show host in the world, you know, for as far as the truth movement's concerned, was Alex Jones. Now, Alex Jones, obviously not a New Zealander, so I can't compete in that way. But however, because the majority of my audience is American, I'm able to do what Vapi Kupenga did for Māori. Okay? Take all this information about New Zealand and relate it to Americans. Because that's what you do. You're trying to translate for people information in a way that they're capable of understanding it. And so if you're all highbrow and what have you, I was raised on American TV, raised on American food, raised on American movies, raised on American technology, and this, that, and the other. As far as I'm concerned, if you're in the West, you're practically American already, if in all but culture. And Americans have this thing that's very, very different to New Zealanders, is that they have a history of overthrowing tyranny. Okay? And if you've got a history of overthrowing tyranny, and that's part of the thing that you learn when you grow up, we're the greatest country in the world, we overthrow the British, and so on and so forth, you have a completely different mentality from New Zealanders who are like, oh, we're still British. Because we didn't do anything. Okay? We didn't cast off the shackles of our oppression or anything. We just sat there and we frickin' took it. Like a bunch of cowards. And that's that American spirit. Bravery. Even though you're up against the biggest empire in the world at the time of England. Even though that might be the case, you still want freedom and you're still willing to fight for it.
Right, and that inspires confidence, doesn't it? Something like that. It even inspires it in me, and I'm not even an American. I'm Polish. I'm 100% Polish, but I'm telling you, I live here in Chicago. I feel it, and anybody who I ever came across who was from New Zealand, I thought they were awesome. I'm like, oh, these guys are just Americans. It's just like, man, these guys aren't supposed to be over there with no guns. We want them over here.
Yeah. And the American dream, kind of thing. And what was very difficult for me living in New Zealand but doing an American talk radio show host is the time zone difference. All right, especially when I started, trial by fire at American Freedom Radio. You're doing a 5 day a week, 2 hour a day show, Vinny. I was like, really? What time? 3 a.m. till 5 a.m. Whoa. And then they don't tell you that the time zones switch halfway through the year. So instead of 3 a.m. till 5 a.m., it eventually, after a couple of months, becomes 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. All right, a little bit more manageable. But it means that your regular hours are just way out the window and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was a grueling commitment getting into this in terms of American talk radio for the first time. And they put me through my paces, and unlike 100% of New Zealanders, I passed the test and became an American talk radio show host. And the only New Zealander to ever have done this. And I think I might be the only one, while I'm still alive, the only New Zealander who knows as much about America, if not more, than most Americans do. That's what my producer told me. I think
that's a world record.
Yeah.
That's not going to go unbroken for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, what was really great is that Counterspin got given a show on, Infowars.com for a couple of episodes there. And now that they've just recently had a baby, their little Stormy, and they're not doing that show anymore, I don't think. Which is just, bit sad. You know, they lasted a couple of episodes and then they're out of the American media. But, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it gets a little difficult when you have to be an American host at 3 a.m. if you have a child that's born, right? You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?
Yeah, well, I've got my daughter who lives with my ex-wife a couple of hours north of us. I'm going to be giving her a call in about 3.5 hours from now, actually. Haven't called her in about a week, and I feel really bad about that. I miss my baby so much. And I've got my new partner, Rebecca, here with me, and our little baby, Alfie. And he's just manifestly cute. Like you just look at the little smiles and listen to the little laughs and stuff like that. You're like, oh my goodness, that's a cute baby. And he filled me full of love. And I saw a thing on Twitter today, an article out of the New Zealand Herald, if I remember correctly, saying that there's a connection between being a parent and having a hard life, you know, like being depressed and anxious and stuff like that. And I'm sure there is probably a connection there. And the connection is most likely, in my opinion, narcissism. Okay? If you're a parent and you only care about yourself, you're going to see it as a chore and a hassle to love and take care of all the needs of your baby. Because you want to be out partying, won't you? You want to be out having sex without consequence, won't you? But instead, you're stuck at home, you're folding, washing, you're cleaning up pooey nappies and things like that. And that's all you see is what you've lost. But if you do find your baby very, very cute and very, very lovable, you enjoy changing those nappies. You love folding that washing because the whole time you get to see this little face looking back at you and smiling and laughing and being ridiculously cute. And your brain tells you that that's a good thing. It makes you feel all warm and fuzzy by manifesting frickin' oxytocin. Okay? That's the way it is. Nature's designed in a very specific way to give you rewards for doing the right thing. Okay? Now, unfortunately, we don't live in a world governed by natural law, or at least not governed by people that apply natural law. That thing can be a little bit out of whack. But, yeah, man, I remember what Ed Dutton, the Jolly Heretic, told me. He said that because of the amount of idiots in the world, and believe me, there are a lot of idiots in this world, they are so dumb that they can't perform basic tasks, okay? And because the idiots are multiplying faster than the intelligent people, eventually you won't have enough intelligent people left to do things, okay? So you won't have anybody who's intelligent enough to be an electrician to get the electricity running if it goes out, or a plumber, or a builder, or something like that. This takes intelligence. And the vast majority of really dumb people in this world will never be any of those things. They can't. They physically don't have the brain power to do it. And this means Ed Dutton believes that if you are intelligent and you have an intelligent partner, you need to be having as much unprotected sex as possible and be raising as many children as you can possibly take care of. If you don't, one day the power is going to go out and it won't come back on because there won't be intelligent people on this planet capable of doing it. And I'm like, ooh, okay, yeah. Honey, let's do this. You know?
Yeah, let's get to work.
Yeah.
Intelligent and courageous. That we need a whole lot of those people.
Yeah. Not a lot of them left, though. But the less that there are of us, the more valuable we are, I think.
Yeah. Differentiation is good. Nature's going to have to compensate for the low numbers with high complexity of those individuals, right? Can be some interesting, freaky dudes, guys and gals.
Indeed. Well, I mean, I'm starting to get a little bit tired now. I can take a break and keep going, but I don't know.
No, I was actually going to ask you. I know it's my show, but I was wondering if you could take us out because only Vinny could do it how Vinny does. So tell us. I'll just say you could find me at truthandlaw.com. Thank you for tuning in for When the Smoke Clears, and I'm gonna let Vinny take it away and take it away. Close us out as only you can.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all the people that are good people in the American alternative media, in the English alternative media, Australian and New Zealand and Canadian and all of that kind of stuff. And everybody else who speaks English, because if you don't speak English, I'm sorry, I haven't heard of you. And wouldn't be able to understand what you were saying if I had. But the whole idea is that you have to have, that old saying, gratitude is the attitude. All right. The vast majority of the time when we're on our shows, we're bitching about stuff. We're bitching about people. We're complaining about things. And what would be really good at the end of the show is to just give people a little bit of props. Okay. So to all the good alternative media out there, people who are actually telling the truth, who are actually good people, who actually care about the people in this world and what you're doing about it. Thank you. You're doing a good job. And there's nobody else to do it but you, so that's good. Okay? Keep it up. Those 3 little words. Keep it up. Don't stop. Okay? No matter how hard it gets or whatever, just take a break. The world's not going to fall apart because you stop doing your job for a couple of weeks or a couple of months or something like that. It's already screwed. Okay? And the whole world's problems are not your mission to solve. You can't solve the entire world's problems. You can only do what you can do. And I'm very glad that you are doing it. Because again, there's too few of us. And that means each and every one of us who is truthful, who is honest with themselves, as well as being honest about the facts of evidence, is so valuable in this day and age. Because we're being cut off like attrition, okay? And to the audience, I know how hard it is to be a member of the audience. You watch, you listen, you learn, but you do your job, and you take care of your family, And at the same time, you're trying to deal with all of this stuff in your head. And that's so hard. It is so hard to both live in the matrix and be trying to destroy it. So for that, each and every one of those people listening who has that concept that although I'm living my ordinary life at night time, this is what I'm listening to. This is what I'm learning. Because I don't like the way the world is, and I want to know more about it. And eventually, like everybody who's ever been a talk radio listener, you may become a talk radio host. Like anybody who's ever done this kind of thing, every filmmaker has watched movies, every musician has listened to music, okay, before they became the maker of it. Don't look down on yourself and think, oh, I'm just an audience member or something like that. Are you kidding me? You could be the next great thing. All right? You could be, but you just have to do something, just not nothing. And sitting there learning and listening to the best talk radio show hosts and things of that nature, that's not doing nothing. Okay? You're learning. You're adapting. If only one day that you will have the confidence to apply that which you have learned, you will benefit from it and others will benefit from it, probably more than you. I'm not the primary beneficiary of the benefits of the Vinny Eastwood show. My listeners are. The emails and things that I get, Vinny, I was going to kill myself until I listened to the lighter side of genocide. Vinny, I was going to go into the military until I listened to the show about cult members and order followers and things of that nature. I have saved lives. And I have saved lives from being wasted as well. Simply because I was here, doing what I was doing, with other people like me, so that it would inspire people like you in the audience to be better than what you think you are. With that being said, thank you very much, ladies, gentlemen, fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood show is bad news. It's like the news, but worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes.